Former Philippine Foreign Secretary Albert Del Rosario on Wednesday urges the Philippines to reassume leadership a year after Manila won a historic case against Beijing over the West Philippine Sea. Del Rosario says the Philippines gained the respect of other countries because it stood for what is right. He says, quote, "Even today, countries hope for us to lead from our position of strength. No other nation can support us more than we do ourselves." Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte downplayed the Hague ruling, which was secured by the Aquino administration to nurture better ties with China. Philippine Ambassador to China Chito Santaromana supports Duterte's stance, saying the country only stands to gain from its friendlier stance towards China. Santaromana says, quote, "I don't think we have lost an inch of territory. I think we gained." He adds there was no point in dealing with China head-on. Santaromana says, quote, "If you deal with China in a hard way, in a hardball manner, you will face the same equally hard, if not harder, approach from the Chinese." Peace Process Advisor Jesus Dureza hopes President Rodrigo Duterte will no longer tinker with the draft Bangsamoro Basic Law after it is submitted to him next week. The Bangsamoro Transition Commission is set to submit its draft of the proposed BBL to Duterte on July 17 in Malacanang. The draft includes the inputs of the Moro National Liberation Front faction led by Muslimin Sema and Yusuf Chikiri, but not the inputs of the faction led by Nur Miswari. Dureza says, quote, "Our recommendation is that as soon as the president receives it, he will turn it over to the Speaker of the House and the Senate President." Dureza adds he hopes Duterte will depart from how the administration of former President Benigno Aquino handled this version of the BBL. He says any tinkering before submission to Congress will preempt the legislature's mandate to decide on bills. The Commission on Audit says President Rodrigo Duterte has more than 6 billion pesos in discretionary funds, including a 1.4 billion peso donation from the Lopez-owned Benpres Corporation dating back to 1990. The COA mentions the figure in its 2016 audit of the Office of the President, which shows the non-utilization of discretionary funds meant for socio-civic and economic development projects. The money is at the disposal of Duterte to be spent once the Office of the President issues guidelines for the implementation of projects to be funded. The OP was able to collect a share of 5 billion pesos for the President's Social Fund from the earnings of the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation from 2014 to 2016. This was officially received by the OP last December. The OP also has at least 1.4 billion pesos in its trust fund, earmarked for agrarian reform, assistance to victims in areas affected by natural calamities, and rehabilitation of depressed areas. This goes all the way back to 1990, when the Meralco Foundation and the Presidential Commission on Good Government entered into a compromise agreement on the divestment of Meralco shares that the PCGG had sequestered. It was only in 2010 when the OP officially recognized the amount in its book of accounts after a series of memoranda and agreements. As of 2016, the 1.4 billion pesos remain untouched. The University of the Philippines Diliman on Tuesday says there will be no tuition fee collection for the first semester of academic year 2017 to 2018 until the government clarifies its no tuition fee policy. UP Diliman Chancellor Michael Tan says the government must clarify its plans for the no tuition fee policy before they implement it. Tan says, quote, "They are not clear yet as to how much subsidy there will be, partial or complete, and who will be eligible." But Commission on Higher Education Commissioner Prospero de Vera calls out Tan for his criticism, saying the implementing rules and regulations for the no tuition fee policy were already circulated before. De Vera says, quote, "The SUCs all over the country are implementing the free tuition program, so why is he criticizing government?" Boxing trainer Freddie Roach admits Senator Manny Pacquiao avoided him immediately after the Filipino fighter lost via unanimous decision to Jeff Horde in Brisbane, Australia. Roach says Pacquiao wasn't himself right after the fight. Roach says Pacquiao stood in front of a mirror in the bathroom of his locker room, his eyes fixated on his hair as he combed it over a cut on his head. He says he couldn't get a read on Pacquiao at the time, adding he doesn't know if the Filipino legend is angry at him. Roach says, quote, "I could not even get him to say hi to me. I don't know if he was upset with me or what." Donald Trump's eldest son on Tuesday releases emails showing he embraced Russia's efforts to support his father's presidential campaign. The email chain is released in its entirety by Donald Trump Jr. on his Twitter account, adding fuel to allegations that Trump's campaign team colluded with Moscow to influence the 2016 election. In the email chain, Trump Jr. was told by a middleman he could get, quote, very high-level and sensitive information that was part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump. The younger Trump, who now runs the family real estate business, responded, quote, if it's what you say, I love it. He then set up a meeting with a supposed Russian government lawyer. Trump Jr. says he did not tell his father about the meeting after the talk failed to yield compromising information about Hillary Clinton, Trump's 2016 election rival. The latest disclosure thrusts the president's son to the center of multiple U.S. investigations by Congress and by the FBI as to whether Trump's team colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 election.